Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be reviewing episode 2 of CSI Vegas' season 2, The Painted Man. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. To date, I've released 3 books, The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. All of them are on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, welcome to my spoiler-filled review of CSI Vegas' Season 2, Episode 2, The Painted Man. In the opening to the episode, visitors to a second-rate haunted house discover that a mannequin is actually, you guessed it, a real and decomposing body. While Allie, Bo, and Max clear the crime scene, Catherine Willows returns to the Eclipse Casino in an attempt to check their security footage for shots of Grace on the day that she disappeared. Catherine gets told off by another male board member and escorted out of the place by her friend Jody Wallach, who does it as a front and claims that she wants to help Catherine search for her friend Grace. Allie is immediately suspicious of a mercurial, self-confessed horror fan named Gene Farrow, who is the superintendent of an apartment building near the haunted house. New medical examiners Jack and Sonia Nikolaevich tell Allie that the old ME, Hugo Ramirez, went to Vienna before explaining that the mannequin victim died 5 months ago, which is about as long as the mannequin has been at the haunted house. The group then enlists Bo to identify the victim. It turns out that his name is Tim Harker and that he lives close to the haunted house. Elsewhere, Max reads Josh in on Catherine's off-the-books investigation into Grace's disappearance. Max warns Josh that helping to investigate the case could mean trouble, but Josh doesn't hesitate to help out because he's that kind of guy. He and Catherine examine video of the casino from the night that Grace disappears and spot the departure of one of the Eclipse's SUVs as soon as Grace vanishes. Josh calls in a friend named Trey in order to have that SUV towed so that he can sneak a peek at its internal GPS. He learns fast from the GPS that the SUV made 2 stops on the day of Grace's disappearance, including one that happened 60 miles into the Ralston Desert. In Tim's house, the CSIs learn from Tim's fiancée Elena that people at the haunted house didn't like Tim because of his disapproval for the house itself. Bo, meanwhile, realizes that he made a rookie mistake by not wearing booties into Tim's house and possibly tracked dust from the crime scene into the apartment, invalidating any further dust evidence found in any places where he walked. Allie tears into him for his mistake, though Max gets her to calm down. Back at the lab though, Allie calms down and apologizes to Bo herself. Then the two find the same dust from the crime scene between paint layers on the mannequin. That brings Allie and Max back to the haunted house, where the owner confesses to them that he knows a room that contained the crime scene dust and that Tim might have been killed there. A wall in that room just happens to be about 5 months old, and when the team knocks it down, they find their primary crime scene. One of Gene's eyelashes happens to be in the room too. When Gene is questioned at his home, he admits that he stole tools from the haunted house to work on creepy projects in his own home. Allie notices that one project included making a miniature doll of her. She gets creeped out and has Gene arrested, though Max reprimands her for this and points out that he'll be released within 24 hours if Allie can't get enough evidence to make a murder charge stick. Catherine and Josh follow the Eclipse SUV's path out into the desert and start looking for Grace's body. They do find a big patch of disturbed earth, but there's no body beneath it. Catherine suspects that Grace's killer has been tipped off that the cops are onto them and moved the body to a new location before it could be found. Josh gets back to Vegas just in time to calm Allie down from obsessing over the possibility that she might not be able to find enough evidence to have Gene put away for good. The two of them return to the kill room where Gene's eyelash was found. When Josh turns a light on, he and Allie notice a table saw in the room, and inside of that table saw is the murder weapon. They bring it to the crime lab where Allie uses one of her new FBI skills, which is forensic fingerprint tagging. The print belongs to Lou Jasper, who's one of the haunted house employees. Racing against the clock, almost every CSI goes back to Tim's place, where Bo realizes that he didn't contaminate the scene after all with his shoes. There are shoes that have the same dust on them in Tim's closet, and they're in Jasper's size. Gene, despite being as creepy as he was, is not the killer. Allie and Serena interrogate Jasper, revealing that he and Eleanor were having an affair while Tim was alive, and that he left his shoes, caked with dust from the haunted house, at Tim's apartment. Tim learned of the affair, he confronted Jasper in a fight at the haunted house, and he was ultimately killed by Jasper using the pipe-like device that was found under the table saw. Jasper is basically arrested for murder at this point, right before Max has Eleanor arrested also as an accessory after the fact for covering up Tim's murder and lying to the police to protect Jasper. Catherine and Josh search the dirt that was taken from what might have been Grace's grave. They realize fast that while there's definitely evidence that some sort of remains were buried there, there's next to no evidence to prove that it was a human being or even to open up a proper homicide investigation for Grace. Catherine later gets a call from a blocked number. Jody turns out to be the caller, and she arranges a stereotypically noir meeting with Catherine in a parking lot at night. Jody tells Catherine that almost as soon as she agreed to help her find Grace, she was attacked and beaten up by a mystery assailant and left with a ream of pictures proving that her attacker had taken surveillance photos of her. Jody then tells Catherine that she's done helping her and that Catherine herself needs to back off of whatever investigation she's pursuing. Jody says that she doesn't want Catherine to end up as the next woman buried in the desert. After work, Josh finds Allie and they admit that they missed each other while she was away in Los Angeles. But their discussion is cut short when Gene, who's recently been released from prison, arrives. He yells at Allie for profiling him as a criminal just because he presents as weirder than other people, and says that because of her having him arrested, he's been both evicted from his home and fired from his job. Allie apologizes, but it all falls on deaf ears with him, and when she asks him why he made the doll of her in the first place, he says that he did it because Allie inspired him at the crime scene. He gives her the doll back and he leaves. Josh makes light of the situation by saying that if Allie doesn't want the doll, he could give it to his niece for her upcoming birthday. However, as the episode closes on Gene's very dark face while he gets into an elevator, the viewer is left to suspect that we may not have seen the last of him. The end. So, here are my thoughts. I don't know if this was supposed to be CSI Vegas's Halloween episode, but I'm just going to assume that it wasn't, because CSI Halloween episodes have historically been good, while this one was relatively bad. Perhaps the thing that made it subpar to me was the fact that it was an Allie-centric episode, and Allie really is my least favorite of these new characters. Season 1 of CSI Vegas basically established her as something of the Sarah Seidel character for the revival series, but she isn't anywhere near as interesting or as complex as Sarah. And when episodes focus on her hyper-emotional tantrums and her tendency for prejudiced tunnel vision, it makes her nothing short of insufferable. And this episode, unfortunately, was one of those times. Gene Farrow was definitely creepy beyond measure, and it was super weird how he kept inserting himself into Tim's murder investigation. That would make him a natural suspect in all 50 states, but as the great Gil Grissom likely would have said if he'd been there, it was the ultimate rookie move for Allie to make things with Gene personal. She basically had him arrested just because of his fixation with her, and she immediately shifted to trying to find evidence to prove him guilty, versus following the evidence despite where it went. Ironically enough, Allie makes pretty much the same sort of feckless mistake that she ripped Bo apart for making earlier, and it looks like that might come back to bite her, considering that Gene visibly doesn't like her much anymore, considering that he's clearly unstable, and considering that he's got nothing but time on his hands now, thanks to Allie. Somehow I just knew right from the start that the victim's fiancé was in on whatever turn of events led to his death. Don't ask me how. I definitely did not guess Jasper's involvement, but I had a feeling that Eleanor wasn't as innocent as she presented. Gene was way too obvious to have been the culprit, and I never bought that he was guilty for even a moment. The thing is, though, I'm not even sure that what Jasper did qualifies technically as murder in the first place, given that Tim attacked him at his work and that he defended himself and killed Tim in the process. Tim's death really feels more like self-defense at best and manslaughter at worst. Granted, Jasper is probably going to be in hot water for covering up Tim's death and lying to the cops about it, but I doubt that any sort of murder charge would stick to him. As of now, the Catherine Grace mystery really is not doing it for me. I commented last week about how it just seems to pale in comparison to last season's Grissom Sarah Hodges mystery, both on an emotional level and in scope. I get that Catherine loves Grace, but I don't. Most of Grace's deal has been told versus shown, and she hasn't even logged one real-time appearance on this show to make me appreciate her. I get that she seems to have been the victim of a crime that was either endorsed or carried out by leadership at the Eclipse. I get that the perpetrators need to pay. I just don't care all that much about it. Okay, down to brass tacks. This episode is pretty lackluster and forgettable, but it does plant some interesting seeds about the mystery of Grace's disappearance, and it possibly also sets up a new recurring antagonist in the form of Gene Farrow. I give CSI Vegas Season 2, Episode 2, The Painted Man, 2.5 Cronuts out of 5. At any rate, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.